Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're just joining this channel for the first time, you haven't missed much because I've got just one video on this channel so far, which was just an introductory video. So before I go on with what today's topic will be about, I just want to encourage you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that already, so that when I post new videos, you will be sure to know that a new one has been posted on this channel. Today, I would like to talk about a very unique topic. So unique in the sense that it's unique mostly to women, not necessarily that it's unique to me, but it's a unique topic because it has to do with how we manage work and how we raise a family at the same time while we're working. So I've just rounded this whole discussions that we'll be having today into a topic that I've called work-life balance and raising children. What is work-life balance? Someone may say. Okay. Work-life balance is basically the relationship that you have between your work and the other important things in your life. Because like we all know, work is not, like the be-all, end-all of what makes a person. So there are other things in your life aside from work, which you also have to have time for. And, you need to balance how you spend your time for that, because work is important, because, we all need to work in order for us to have a livelihood, in order for us to be able to pay the bills. So while we know that, we also know that there are other things in our lives that are important as well, that we need to make sure we are managing our time around in order to be able to do those things alongside being able to work. Today, we're going to be talking about work-life balance, especially as it relates to the family, meaning as it relates to raising children and at the same time working. So that's what we're going to narrow it down today too. We're not going to talk about how, how a sports person manages his work and then his sports or the hobbies that we have, but I'm just going to really sort of like narrow it down to balancing your work time as well as having time to raise your kids in the way that you want them to grow. I'm going to be sharing some personal experiences, like I had with how I raised mine and how I managed my work time. I will share some personal experiences. I would say, what kind of support you should have when you're working and at the same time raising children. I will talk about how that will benefit you, and I'll talk about what you would, have the physical needs that you'll be able to meet, by just being able to manage your work life and raising your children at the same time. So, what was it like when after you had a child and then you had to go to work? And this is after you had your first child now. Or after you had the first child, then you had the second child, meaning you have more children now, and then you had to return to work. How did it feel? So I'll start with myself. I'll give you a personal take on it. So first of all, being a mother or a wife in diaspora, most of us tend to be the be all and end all in terms of doing domestic chores. So you are like the cook, the cleaner, the driver, the everything in one person. So you really have to gain the skill of trying to manage your time around all of that. So the first thing that happens when you have the baby is the shock. It's like a huge shock culture, because now you're not just responsible for yourself alone. You are responsible for this other child, and also you have to be thinking of your spouse at the same time, because you cannot just say, oh, because I've had a baby now and because I have to work, I'll just solely focus on work and the child. You have to still think about your spouse at the same time. So the first initial feeling that I had when after having a baby and I was meant to now return to work was just the shock of it all, the shock of how am I going to cope with this? How am I going to manage this? And that was just like the first initial feeling that I had. At that time, I thought, okay, I need to take back, I need to get some time back for myself. At the same time, I need to find some time to spend with my spouse, and at the same time I need to raise my child or my baby in the way that I wanted him to be raised. So after the initial shock of knowing that I now need to be a manager of three people meaning myself, my baby, and my husband, I decided to think, what am I going to put first now on the scale of things? And the first thing that I realized was that I need to manage how I spend my time. Because before having the child, it was just work, spouse, home, managing the home, and stuff like that. But now that the child is involved, I need to extend that to the child. So that means I need to be in more control of my time. So the first thing I would say is that while you are on maternity leave, you need to have a plan in place for going back to work. So for example, if you were waking up, say at 7 o'clock in the morning before to get ready for work, you might need to say, oh, I need to change that now and move it to 6 o'clock. So managing that time, because you would have to prepare yourself, you probably have to prepare a meal for yourself as well. You have to think about your spouse, maybe if he has a cup of tea before he goes to work. You have to also prepare the baby, give the baby a bath, dress the baby up before you can take the baby to a creche or to a nursery, depending on where you put the baby before you go to work. So the first thing I would say is setting a routine for when you get back to work. Now, in setting the routine, you have to work with your spouse. Your spouse has to be part of this routine now, because it's both of you together, this new baby together, this whole new way of running your family together. So you have to work with your spouse in setting that routine. The reason why you have to set the routine is because if you don't set the routine, what you would find is that you will become very lethargic. You will feel very stressed. You will also feel like you have the world on your shoulders, because you will feel also like you are under pressure to meet everyone else's needs. So you need to understand that you have to use the support system that you have around you. And the most secure or most reliable support system that you have around you at that time is the support of your spouse. So you need to draw strength from him. You need to speak to your spouse about this. You need to come together and form a routine of how you want your family to work, especially on the work days. So basically, if you've got a spouse where both of you work Mondays to Fridays, you need to make a routine for those Monday to Friday windows of how the family would work. Another support system that you should have is support from work. So before you go back from maternity leave, you should ensure that you know what your organizational policy is around supporting workers who have little children, or workers who have family or somebody to care for. So you need to know what your organizational policy is about that. So because some organizations allow you to work flexible hours. So, for example, flexible hours just means you are allowed to resume or start work between the periods of 8 to 10 o'clock in the morning. So, if your organizational policy is like that, then you can work with that and use it as a routine for how you can manage, that early morning, waking up, getting yourself ready, getting your child ready, making sure that everyone is leaving the door at the same time. You have to know who is dropping the child at creche on each day. You have to know who is leaving the house first, or who should leave the house first on each day. And you have to know that beforehand, because that helps you to manage even the waking up period. Another way in which your organization can support you is by you forming a close relationship with your line manager, for example. And like I said, this goes both ways. So it's not just you, the mother, doing it. The father as well, is building that rapport between himself and the line manager, so that if anything comes up with the child, your organization, or at least your line manager, the person who should know, is aware that this is the situation that you're facing, and so can work around the organizational policy to help you manage such emergencies or such situations that could arise. Another support that you should have is the one I call support from yourself. Support from yourself. Support from yourself is really important at this stage, because a lot of people suffer in silence. So they need the support, they want the support, but they don't talk. They don't speak out. All they do is just keep, going on and, trying to see how they can manage this on their own without talking about it. Now, from my personal experience, I find that if you do that, it will be like you're taking a lot more on yourself. And then what you will find is that you're getting more stressed and you're feeling more unhealthy. And it could lead to you calling in sick at work all the time. So you need to speak out. You need to speak to people around you. Speak to your spouse. Speak to your friends. Speak to your line manager. Even speak to your extended family if you're lucky to have them around you as well. Because if you don't have that confidence to be able to say, this is what I'm facing, right, then you will not even be able to get the right support that you need in the first instance to be able to manage that work-life balance and raise the kids at the same time. Another way to look at this is the fact that if you have more time, or if you've managed to work out a routine for yourself, for example, I would say, what's a routine? So the routine is not just about waking up in the morning and what time you're going to wake up. It's about planning your whole day. So this is when we wake up. This is when we do things, and putting in little windows in between to know that every day is not going to work like clockwork exactly the way the other day worked. Every day is different from the other day, because today the baby could be sick. Tomorrow, some emergency, maybe at work, you need to attend a meeting even more earlier than you attended it the day before or the week before. Or maybe your spouse too is busier during that work period of time, and so is not able to fit into that routine. So you have to have little windows between the routine. But what I would say is the most important part of the routine would be bedtime routine for the child. Because while we're talking at this point in time, the child too is also growing, and the child too would also need, that family bond, that family support, that father-child time, mother-child time, parent-child time, spending time with this young person that has now become part of your family, and giving them that confidence that they belong somewhere. So you need to work out a routine where you know that you can have time to ask your child how their day went, have time to ask your spouse how their day went, have time to share how your own day went, and just listen to each other. So this could be at meal times. This could be maybe after meal times and just before bedtimes. Now, what worked for me then, especially for the bedtimes, was reading a bedtime story to the kids. That actually, if you can stick to that routine, like get a book. It doesn't even have to be a different book every day. That's what I found with children. It could be one book every single day, because children love the repetitive nature of the book. For example, in my own experience, I used to read The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And trust me, when it was time for bed, my children were always really excited because they were going to hear that story all over again. And it became so repeated that they began to know the lines in the story as well. For example, where they say, and he was still hungry. So anytime I got to that part where they say, and he was still hungry, you will see that they would repeat it with me. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, a different book every night. It could be the same book, like I said. If I go back to talking about support from your organization or support from work, what I forgot to mention there was that different organizations will have different ways of supporting, families with children. So some of them may allow you to work flexible hours, like I mentioned earlier. Some of them would allow you to work from home, for example, because you might have days where, like I said, your routine is not going quite as planned, but because you build a sort of like a support network between yourself and your line manager, you are able to explain your circumstances with him. And if you're working in an organization where, working from home is allowed, that's one of the, measures that you should take advantage of on days that are not going according to your routine. Other organizations too would allow you to work fewer hours, or mix match your hours. Work some hours in the office, maybe if you have meetings, and then work some hours from home, depending on how, how you can balance, but to ensure that you are not feeling strained. I'll go from there now to talk about the benefits. What are the benefits, of actually trying and doing your best to maintain a work life or manage your work life balance, especially when it comes to raising children? There are a lot of benefits in it. For example, I really loved, I like reading. I like reading books a lot. And before I had children, I could stay up all night and read a book and finish the book all that night and still wake up the next morning feeling refreshed and ready for work. But I found that after having the kids, there was not much time on my hands to even read a newspaper or a magazine, not to talk of reading a whole book. So when you put your child or your home into a sort of routine, one of the benefits that you can get from that is that, apart from the fact that you have more time to spend with children because you've secluded, you schedule a specific time of the day to spend with them, you also have time to spend on the things that you love doing. And it's very, very, very important that you should take care of yourself, because when you are healthy, then you can be able to also take care of the baby or take care of the home. So one of the benefits of arranging that routine and sticking to a routine, when we wake up, when we get back from work, leaving work at work, coming home and making sure that now it's time for the kids, it's time for dinner, it's time to, talk about our day, it's time to probably watch a bit of telly, and now it's time to go to bed. That helps you to be able to have more time for yourself. You feel less stressed, you feel less tired, you feel like you are more in control of your time. You feel better able to make decisions and meet commitments, whether they be commitments with friends or commitments at work or commitments, with your social life. Even in yourself, generally, you feel healthy. Also, you have a better relationship with your spouse, and you also are seeing that you have more time as well, or at least you're making time to spend with your spouse. You also have more time for your children, because at least you know that this is a scheduled time where I just need to let everything out now and listen to my children. What do they have to say? What was it about their day? Because you've planned it into your schedule for the day. One thing that I must not fail to say is this, that remember that we are all individuals, and we all come from different families and different work life backgrounds. So do not ever feel the need to subject yourself to a specific type of routine. Maybe you say, oh, this worked for my friend, so why is it working for my friend and it's not working for me? You must understand that managing work-life balance and raising children is not a universal or objective. There's no one universal or objective way of doing it. It's usually subjective. You need to look back into yourself. What works for my family? What works for my home? How am I going to use that now to ensure that we all remain healthy, less stressed, and everything's working normal like clockwork and nothing really suffers? So I would say, look back into your own family and see what works for you. How do I set my routines? How do I plan my time? How do I set those routines around my children? How do I ensure that my children can keep to such, to such timing and to the routine as well? Because when you are able to do that, and relate it more to your own experience, then it will work for you better than if you say, oh, Miss A did it that way, or Mrs. B did it that way, and why is mine not working? It may not work for you exactly as Mrs. A or Mrs. B or Mr. A or Mr. B did theirs. So you need to go back, sit down, look at your home front, your home situation, and work your routine around that. I hope I've really, helped someone, anyone out there to understand more how to manage work and at the same time raise kids. So if you've enjoyed this video today, please leave your comments below, and please feel free to share your own experiences or your own perspectives from this, because like I said in my last video, we can all learn from each other. Do not forget to subscribe to this channel. Please subscribe to this channel so that when I post another video, you'll be sure to know that another video has been posted. On my next video, I will be doing a book review, and the book is titled Stay With Me by Abayomi Adebayo. It's a really interesting piece, so watch out for my next video. Thank you all so much for joining me on this video or on this edition in my YouTube channel. Stay blessed. Take care of yourselves. Until we'll see you next time. God bless.